Hi everyone, welcome to our weekly Q&A session, and today it is my pleasure to welcome here our coach Richard. So Richard, hello and welcome today. How are you?
I'm great today. How are you doing, Veronica?
I'm also good. So anyone who is going to change today, please feel free to share your questions. We are very happy to answer them. And there have been a few questions that have been left unanswered from the last session I had with Daniel last week. And the first one would be from Paul. And Paul is asking, what are the signs of living insomnia? So, what do you think, Richard?
Yeah, well, thanks for that question, Paul. It's easy to think that, well, the signs of leaving insomnia are that you're sleeping well. Okay, now that's part of it, but the more important sign is that you're not thinking about or obsessing about sleep anymore. Because when we have insomnia, often that's kind of the top thing on our mind. And I could, in the thick of my insomnia, I could spend 4 or 5 hours a day thinking about and researching and so forth, insomnia. So that's one element. And then the other thing is that if you are sleeping well or sleeping better, but you're still afraid that you won't sleep well in the future, again, you're not entirely there. So I would say that you're leaving insomnia primarily when you're less fearful about it and less thinking about it less. And then kind of the consequence of that is, yes, you're sleeping better. So people think that there's going to be kind of some fireworks when you finally arrive, okay, at, 11 o'clock at night on January 22nd, okay, your insomnia is gone. It doesn't go like that. It's a gradual process. And you gradually think less about it or less fearful about it. And as a consequence, you're sleeping well.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. And I'm glad that you just described it like there is not going to be like one exact point where people live insomnia. It's really about a process and gradual lowering the symptoms of anxiety, slowly responding much better or with more ease to sleepless nights, and experiencing less worry during the daytime, maybe even more energy during the daytime, which is also helpful. And eventually, better sleep will really happen at the end of this whole process, at the end of this inner work that we are doing with ourselves, with learning to accept the discomfort, with being with the anxiety, with addressing our fears. So eventually, really, the signs of living insomnia is really gradual. There will be no big fanfare at the end of it. And just like you said, if you are in a place where you are still worried that you might experience sleepless nights, that you will fear there will be more struggle, then there is still some work to be done. So take your time, Paul, and I'm really sure you will see the results. Right. So actually, a new questions are coming in. So let's look at them. Right. We have a question from Ojasvi, and he's asking, "Hello, I have a strange fear from falling asleep and a kind of fear of losing consciousness." So, what do you think, Richard? I think Ojasvi is talking about somniphobia. So, what are your thoughts on this
Yeah,
topic?
yeah. So it's Ojasvi. Thanks for the question, Ojasvi. And yeah, this is something that we encounter sometimes. I mean, the main thing that we tend to be afraid of when we have insomnia is fear of wakefulness. We're awake and, oh, there's something wrong with us. I'm awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's terrible. And we kind of overreact to that and become very fearful of that. But sometimes people are afraid of falling asleep and losing consciousness. And I think the reason for that is that we're afraid of losing control. People with insomnia, and this was certainly true of me in the past, can often just be afraid of a lot of things. And one of the kind of predisposing uh, personality factors in insomnia is just a tendency for anxiety. So anxiety can spread to a lot of other things. It can spread to wakefulness. And for some people, it actually spreads to fear of sleep because we want to have that control. And if we're asleep, obviously we can't have the control. We call this sometimes somnophobia, so fear of being asleep. And I think it's not really different from other forms of insomnia. It's just fears around sleep and wakefulness and this whole cycle of going back and forth between being asleep and being awake. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't have much to add. It's really just another facet of the struggle, and it's not really about the thing what we are afraid of, rather to acknowledge the emotion, the fear behind it, the fear, how do we feel it in our body, to stay with the fear, and just a little acknowledgement to our brain, like, hey, okay, thank you, brain, for sending me this fear. I know you are trying to protect me, but I logically know it is safe. So I would approach it in this way. So I hope this was helpful, Ojasvi, and we can move to another question which we have from Tatiana. So how do you approach sleep monitoring or hyper awareness? Very common question. So what are your thoughts, Richard?
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Tatiana. And it's very common when we have insomnia to be monitoring how we're doing. I mean, we can monitor the clock and think, oh, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I've slept only 3 hours, and they do the mental math. Okay, well, I'd like to get 3 more hours. And that's a form of monitoring. Another form of monitoring is, oh, I'm awake. Well, I'm waiting for sleepiness to come back. Okay, am I sleepy yet? Am I sleepy yet? And that's another form of monitoring. So when we're monitoring, wondering, and pondering, this can keep us awake. And sometimes it's not necessarily associated with a lot of fear or anxiety. It can just be kind of increased alertness, which is what we're talking about when we talk about hyperarousal. But monitoring can definitely get in the way of sleep. We have to remember that sleep is an effortless process. So when we're putting effort into it by monitoring it and trying to kind of pull the levers and controls to make it happen, that tends to just make it more elusive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what to do about this? Well, I mean, there's some kind of concrete things you can do. For example, you can not watch the clock at night. So if you're awake in the middle of the night and you look at the clock, again, that's gonna encourage monitoring. So keep the clocks out of the room. Other things, just kind of being aware that monitoring is not helpful. And when you find yourself starting to monitor, whether it's you're monitoring your level of sleepiness or the number of hours and so forth, just remind yourself, just let go of that. And you don't need to monitor, because just remind yourself that sleep is effortless, even though that seems crazy to anyone with insomnia. I think that it could be effortless. It really is. And then just kind of getting used to the fact that it is effortless, and you don't have to do a lot of things or do anything really to make yourself sleep. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe what I would just add to this, it just, we also call it like hypervigilance, and it's a very natural part when we are in fight or flight, when our brain is monitoring for threats. And just knowing and understanding this can help us to be more kinder to ourselves when this hypervigilance appears. And maybe what comes to my mind is I would like differentiate between like first and second level of monitoring. The first one is, which I mentioned, the hypervigilance, which is very natural and automatic, and we can't do so much about it because it is just the natural hyperarousal when our brain detects a threat. And the second level is something more like more conscious. Am I sleepy yet? Am I falling asleep? Am I, or like Coach Richard suggested, what time it is? And when we know that this really conscious, this monitoring is not helpful, that checking time, monitoring for how sleepy we are, or whether we are sleepy enough to sleep, then this can help us more to let go of this conscious monitoring. And then this first, there is automatic level of, like this first level of monitoring stays. And when we allow it and don't try to fight it, don't try to remove it with force, then naturally it will smooth itself out.
Yeah, and Veronika, if I could just add one more thing.
Yes,
So
go ahead.
this can apply in the evening also.
Mhm.
Well, or let's say in any time. So you're having trouble falling asleep, and or you're awake in the middle of the night, and if you follow kind of the approach of more mainstream approaches to insomnia, they'll say, well, if you're awake in the middle of the night, we'll get up and then go to bed when you're sleepy, or in the evening, go to bed when you're sleepy. Now that seems to make sense, but the
Mhm.
problem with that is then you start monitoring your level of sleepiness. So I
Exactly.
prefer to tell people, go to bed when you feel like it, okay?
Mhm.
Rather than just looking at this golden prize of sleepiness, that the more you try to pursue it and look for it, the more elusive it's going to be.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Richard. Okay, the wonderful questions are coming in, and another one is from. I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's like Dana Lakshmi. And what is the best way to reduce anxiety and stop myself from thinking about sleep all day? I tried hard not to think about it by distracting myself in other things, but it's not working. And follow-up question is from I went to doctor and they gave me Solbidem. It was working fine for a week, but now it's not, and my anxiety peaked after knowing that I can't sleep properly, even with medication.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first part of the question is about how to reduce anxiety and how not to think about sleep all day. So, what are your thoughts, Richard?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm going to take the issue about the sleeping pill. And most sleeping pills work great initially, okay? Maybe for a week, maybe for a month, but
Right.
then almost universally, for at least a large majority of people, they stop working. And that's because we develop tolerance. Our body becomes used to it. It doesn't react as strongly to it. So if Ambien worked for everyone and didn't have any side effects, we wouldn't need our approach here. But they just tend not to work for very long or very permanently. And I understand most doctors don't know what else to do, and that's what they do, and it's not very effective usually. So getting back to the issue of how much you're thinking about sleep, and I certainly did this, as I mentioned a minute ago. I certainly did this during the day. I would spend a lot of time thinking about sleep. And one thing to think of here is that, we have a lot of thoughts during the day, and some psychologists calculated we have like 40 or 50,000 thoughts that come into our head every day. And a lot of them are just kind of these neutral thoughts like, oh, I have to pick up a loaf of bread. But then some of them are more distressing thoughts like, oh, what happens if I don't sleep? Will I ever sleep again? But we don't have to engage with every thought we have. It's kind of an unpleasant thought, but we don't have to then start with this one thought that kind of pops automatically into our head and then spend a lot of time thinking about that and pondering it. So we do have a choice about whether to go from just a thought to engaging with it in prolonged thinking. So I found that really helpful when I first learned about that, because I would just kind of automatically, just out of habit, spend a lot of time thinking about it. Now, we don't want to push the thoughts away just by saying, oh, I'm afraid I won't sleep. Okay, I'm not going to think about that. No, you just be with the thought. And I would say for maybe 2 or 3 minutes and just kind of acknowledge non-reactively, oh, I have this thought. And one thing I found helpful was to instead of saying, I'm afraid I won't sleep, to say, oh, I'm noticing this fear around sleep, or I'm noticing these thoughts around sleep. And that kind of makes it more impersonal and less threatening. And then again, when we have the thought, we don't have to run with it. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it. And I found that when I just got in the habit of looking at thoughts that way, over time, I was able to disengage with thoughts and not run with everyone. And I found that so helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I have to say that this approach was incredibly helpful even for me. And when I learned that I don't have to believe every thought that comes to my mind, especially that when these thoughts are just a product of our scared brain.
Mhm.
So all these what ifs, you can really easily differentiate or like recognize that this is my scary thought because it started with what if, right? So if you can like create some distance between yourself and these thoughts, that okay, this is my what if thought, this is my just a product of my scared brain. This is so helpful. And recently I heard a really nice distinction when we experience such a um, uh, this kind of problem where we feel we constantly think about sleep like from the morning till the evening, and we can kind of like uh, consciously bring our attention to or create a time for worry and then create a time for our life. So when you have this time for worry, you can allow your brain like to go wild with the catastrophizing and bring all the what ifs, and even ask yourself, okay, what is the worst? And can you, your hey brain, can you give me even worst case scenario, even worst case scenario, right? So and then when you just acknowledge all of them, then now it is time for your life. And when any thought occurs during this time, you can even tell yourself, like, hey, now it is time for my life. And
Mhm.
I will engage with the thoughts later when it's my worry time. It could be anything between 15 minutes or 1 hour when you which you allocate to your worry time. But I believe with the time it will reduce, and eventually it will not be needed because the same thoughts will not trigger the same emotional reactions later on.
Mhm.
Right. I hope this was helpful. And another question comes from Sarah. Hi. Oh my God, I've been waiting for this, so I'm glad that you called us here. So, what do I do if I'm afraid of alarms? Like setting one up for early time, I add pressure that I have an only blank amount of
Right.
hours to sleep.
Yeah.
And she's asking another question. Do you think self doubt is linked to how long it takes to recover from insomnia? Or is it non related at all and a form of monitoring? Okay, so let's talk about the alarm question. So, what do you think, Richard?
Yeah, well, thanks for that question, Sarah. And I remember experiencing something very similar to that. If I had my alarm on, let's say for, 6:30, then if I'm having trouble sleeping and it's, let's say, 5 o'clock and I'm awake, I think, oh my God, the alarm's going to go off at 6:30. Oh, and then I'm just kind of thinking of the alarm, and there's just like this performance anxiety. And I was also afraid that if I wanted to sleep a little later than that I couldn't.
Mhm.
So I think alarms can definitely kind of be a trigger like that for a lot of people. Um, the solution I found was to stop using an alarm. Now, that doesn't necessarily work for everyone. Uh, I found that I could actually wake up early enough most mornings that I didn't have to worry about it. One other solution that I tried was I found an app that would just gradually uh, turn on my phone, would just gradually turn on in terms of light. So my room would gradually become lighter, and it wouldn't be just this jarring alarm. Because when you think of it, alarm clocks are really not very natural. That's not how our ancestors woke up in the morning. They woke up naturally. So I think there's something unnatural about alarms. Um, and if you want to try a light alarm like that, like I tried, that would be one option. Um, I think that just kind of having this fear around sleep, uh, fear just tends to channel into different areas kind of related to sleep. So we had an earlier question about, fear of falling asleep. And normally we have fear of being awake. And then another fear is fear of the alarm. So I think as we progress in our recovery, we just become less fearful overall. And I think the fear of alarms will subside gradually over time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Richard. And I just have to second this. And I had the very same experience. And it was like, regardless how much time I allowed myself to stay in bed, I could even if I would set an alarm for, I don't know, 8 a.m. and I would go to bed at 8 p.m. in the evening, I would still would be like stressed out. And I have, oh my God, I have to manage to fall asleep within 12 hours. So it was really crazy. And my advice was like, not checking the time at night, because the closer to your alarm, it's the more distressing it becomes. And you know and kind of like allowing uh, or knowing that when you wake up in the morning or earlier in the morning, your sleep drive will build. You're going to build more sleep drive. This is just my little brain hack that, okay, if I wake up in the morning early, or I will build more sleep drive to become more tired in the evening. So that's one little trick that I was using to help myself overcome the fear of alarms. And I hope this was helpful, Sarah. And right, the other part of the question from Sarah was, do you think self-doubt is linked to how long it takes to recover from insomnia, or is it non-related at all and a form of monitoring? So what do you think?
So, do you think self-doubt is linked to how long it takes? Well, I think, we, as we're on the recovery journey from insomnia, we gradually become more confident that we can sleep. Okay. And so I think self-doubt is just this worry that this lack of confidence that we're able to sleep. I think when we have hyperarousal or anxiety, that kind of is similar to self-doubt. So I think that's often involved. Um, or is it not related at all and a form of monitoring? Um, Not quite sure what you mean by that, Sarah, but I think self-doubt is often in the mix, and it gradually goes away as we improve and use a lot of the tools that we talk about here.
Yeah, I think the self-doubt is very normal, and we doubt everything on our journey. We doubt whether uh, every single step, whether we should use the sleep hygiene, whether we should use a pill, whether we should, um, um, what approach to take, ACT, CBTI, Natto approach, without ourselves. Are we healthy? Are we okay? Are we able or capable of sleep? So the self-doubt, I think it's very, very normal and common on this insomnia recovery journey. And I think it can really um, like it can be really scary the longer our insomnia recovery takes, that we doubt ourselves even more. And but I think knowing that insomnia recovery can take anything from weeks to years can give you the confidence that whatever my insomnia recovery takes is absolutely normal. So I hope this was helpful, Sarah. And right, we have a question from Danielle. Hey there, I'm doing so much better already thanks to you. Thank you. My only struggle left is that when I don't feel tired at night, I manage to sleep like 6 hours and wake up quite often. How do I continue? Hmm. It's like that when I don't feel tired at night, I manage to sleep like 6 hours and wake up quite often. Do you get the question, Richard?
Okay, well, I'm not sure, but Daniel, let me take a stab at it. When you don't feel tired at night, you manage to sleep 6 hours. Now, I'm not sure if 6 hours is good for you or bad for you. If
Yes.
you normally sleep 8, but 6 is worse, or if you normally sleep 4, but 6 is better. So I'm not sure. Um, so when it's very common when we have insomnia not to feel sleepy when we go to bed, or not to feel sleepy when we wake up. And it's tempting to think, oh, this is just, we don't have enough sleep drive. But we actually usually do have plenty of sleep drive. It's just that the hyperarousal is getting in the way. And sometimes it's not obvious that we have the hyperarousal.
Mhm.
Sometimes, we don't have the racing heart, the racing thoughts, the actual anxiety. We just have what we call silent hyperarousal or silent anxiety that keeps us from feeling the sleepiness that we would normally feel, assuming that, we've been up all day and have plenty of sleep drive. So that's often kind of perplexing to a lot of people, just when they experience lack of sleepiness but no other clear signs of anxiety or hyperarousal. And then that can go along with just frequent awakenings also. So I think it's still a form of hyperarousal, assuming you've been awake for a number of hours during the day. And I don't think it's any different from any other form of more obvious hyperarousal. It's just a little more subtle.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for answering, Richard. And let's move to another question from AIM. What do I do if you have a person in your life who sabotages your progress intentionally? At current time, I cannot put distance between myself and this person.
Mm.
Interesting. I'm really sorry that you are having such an experience, AI, and it's almost impossible to work on this part completely untriggered, because we may read stories, we may hear people talking about sleep, how well they sleep, and this can trigger some stress in us. I don't know exactly what are you talking about when you're saying that this person is sabotaging your progress, whether it's doubting this approach, or whether it's disturbing you in your sleep and if you sleep. So it's not so easy to answer your question, but my go-to response would be that whatever emotion this person wait, creates in you, you need to address this emotion. If it is fear, if it is anger, if it is disappointment or frustration, you need to address these emotions within you. You are not responsible how this person behaves, but you can take the responsibility for your own responses on the triggers this person is causing to you. So processing the emotions, bringing it to the surface, allowing them to pass through your body, and kind of like creating this mental distance. Okay, this is this person, and despite this person is trying to sabotage me, it is my own responsibility how I react. You can even imagine yourself like in a bubble, which is okay. Whatever this person does, I am safe in my own bubble, and whatever he says or does, it cannot touch me. So this is my suggestion, AI, and I hope this was helpful. Maybe any thoughts, Richard?
Yeah, I think we always have to be careful how much we talk about our insomnia issues to other people,
Right.
because some people are very supportive, and that's wonderful.
Mhm.
A lot of people's spouses have been described as very supportive, and that's great. But sometimes other people just don't get it. And sometimes they may feel like they're sabotaging, but they may feel frustrated because they don't know what to do to help us with the insomnia.
Yeah,
But I just learned that I had to be very careful of how much I talked about it to other people.
yeah,
And
that's
so I
true.
think generally, I think we have to kind of limit it, because most people either don't get it or they think they get it, and they think that it's obvious. You just close your eyes and you're asleep. It's not that
Yeah,
simple.
yeah, that's a good point, Richard. Thank you so much for sharing. And now, we have a question from L. I have a question too. I feel like I have not slept at all, but I can remember dreaming. But when I wake up, it feels like I haven't slept at all. Why is this happening? This is a very common experience, which we call hypersleep. I respond really quickly. This is like sleep that is infused with hyperarousal. We are not sure whether we sleep or not. We may experience vivid dreams. The time skips ahead, and in the morning we are not sure whether we sleep or not. It is a very natural experience during insomnia, and important to know it's very normal, like I mentioned. And secondly, when we don't respond with stress, when we don't respond, when we accept it and allow it to be, to this sleep to be the way it is right now, it will gradually uh, changes and improves, and you will experience moments where you will have also like deeper stages of sleep. Right, and I'm trying to answer all of these questions, but it will be impossible today. So let's say answer one last question, and this would be from Raphael. I'm having a problem with hyperarousal when it's bedtime. I know it's irrational, but somehow my brain is afraid when it's night, thinking I might have a problem with falling asleep. What do I do? What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, this is just classic insomnia. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and insomnia drives hyperarousal. And we know in our rational brain that it's irrational, but we just have this primitive brain that existed way before we had language or logic. So we can't really reason with it. We can't say, oh, this is not a rational fear. I mean, that's true, and that might have a little bit of an effect. But generally, our primitive brain responds more to our behavior. So if we spend a lot of time thinking about it and pondering it and wondering about it, our brain will think, oh, this must really be serious. And but if we just kind of acknowledge it non-reactively and get into the habit of not spending a lot of time on it or deploying a lot of energy around it, gradually it will come down. But this is really a big question, and it's something we answer with kind of all the tools that we have. But that's just a kind of a brief outline of how I would approach it.
Yes, exactly. Just a deep dive into this channel, Raphael. Or there are wonderful options if you feel like anybody from you would benefit from having this back and forth, this conversation with Coach Richard or with me. I will post a link under this video. If we also have this wonderful program in the Insomnia Immunity Program, if you would like to, if you would like enjoy this group coaching, which is really, really beneficial to have some to share the same experience like the others have with insomnia. And we also have a few thank you notes for today, and this is from AIM, from Sarah, and I thank you so much for being here, Richard, for your wonderful responses, for your wonderful support. I thank everybody for your wonderful questions, and I will be back next week and with Coach Richard some other time. Thank you so much. Bye bye, and have a
Thanks,
great
Rob.
day ahead. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.